Hey, we hope you're having a great day. I'm Tom.
I'm Holly.
And welcome to HBC's YouTube channel. Hello and welcome back to day 23 of Journey Through the Bible. It's Friday today. We hope you're getting that Friday feeling and are ready for a weekend. We hope you have a relaxing one and that you can just find something to do in isolation, I guess.
We're starting on chapter 11 this time, and it's continuing with that same vein that Paul was talking about Jewish unbelief, but it's as if this is his crunch point, that he's actually giving the Jewish nation a bit of hope and promise of what God's going to do for them. So let's dive right into our passage for today.
Romans 11, verses 1 to 10. I ask then, did God reject his people? By no means. I am an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. God did not reject his people, whom he foreknew. Don't you know what Scripture says in the passage about Elijah, how he appealed to God against Israel? Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars. I am the only one left, and they are trying to kill me. And what was God's answer to him? I have reserved for myself 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So too, at the present time, there is a remnant chosen by grace. And if by grace, then it cannot be based on works. If it were, grace would no longer be grace. What then? What the people of Israel sought so earnestly, they did not obtain. The elect among them did, but the others were hardened, as it is written. God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes that could not see, and ears that could not hear, to this very day. And David says, may their table become a snare and a trap, a stumbling block, and a retribution for them. May their eyes be darkened so they cannot see, and their backs be bent forever.
The main theme of this passage is good news. Now, for the last few chapters, it's as if Paul's been saying that Jewish unbelief is a really bad thing, and that it's kind of like all doom and gloom for the Jewish people. But in this moment, it's like he says, all hope is not lost. God has a plan. He reminds us that actually Jewish unbelief is not total or final, but that God has a remnant of Israelites that he has already saved by grace. And he reminds us that the more that are added to that number, the more Jewish people that are saved through Christ, the more the world will be blessed through them. Paul vehemently reminds us that God has not rejected his people or forgotten them, that they still have a purpose and a plan in his salvation story, and that actually he is using their transgressions to bring about good. And so we're reminded once again that God can use anything for the greater glory of his salvation plan.
Paul backs up his claims that God has not rejected his people with evidence. First, a personal evidence. Paul himself was a Jew, a former persecutor who fought against the gospel and is now saved by grace and is preaching the gospel. Secondly, theological evidence. Paul references that the Israelites were foreknown by God, and so he reminds us that God's elect will not be rejected. Thirdly, biblical evidence. Elijah the prophet cried out to God that he was the only loyal one left in Israel. But God told him that there were many more people who did not bow down to idols. Many Israelites remained faithful to God. Finally, Paul's fourth evidence is contemporary. That God himself has chosen a faithful remnant who will be saved by grace. Once more, Paul reminds us that works or deeds has no place in salvation, and that grace is pure, it's simple, an unmerited gift given to us.
Paul concludes this passage by reminding us that there are two Israels, and this is a concept that he's used before. The idea that there's one Israel that's born into the nation by heritage, and that there's another Israel who are children of the promise, as in true followers of God. He says that the true Israel, God has saved a remnant from that nation. So the idea being that God has elected some and has chosen some faithful Israelites to be saved by grace, and that they are already a part of his plan. But for the other Israel, he says that he'll harden their hearts. And again, like we've explored before, and as Paul's used this illustration before, we know that God doesn't harden the hearts of those who want to receive him. These are people who have chosen to reject him time and time again. And so it's as if it's divine retribution, divine judgment of saying, okay, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. You don't want anything to do with me, and so I will harden your heart towards me. And sort of that's where the passage ends at this moment. It's a bit of a bombshell, and we'll find out tomorrow how Paul builds it back up again to be good news for the Jewish nation too. Time for our application. Now, one of the things that really hit me in this passage was the idea of hearts being hardened. And how often can we fall into that trap of hardening our hearts towards God? Even those of us who love God, it just becomes so easy to neglect him and to just put other things in front of him and prioritise other things. So I think let's just be cautious of where our hearts are at, because it reminded me that God can use soft hearts to do so many things, to do great work for him, but a hard heart is totally unmalleable. So just think about, what is your heart like today? Have you got a hard heart for God, or have you got a soft heart for him?
And that's day 23 of Journey Through the Bible. Leave us a comment in the comment section below, send us an email, leave something on our social medias, let us know what you've got from this and what you're going to do to keep your hearts soft and malleable for God to use. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.